galaxies. And so I like to tie in all of the constellations that we can see right overhead this time of year, roughly at about 10 p.m. at night, because most of us aren't going to be in bed a little bit past that anyway. So if you guys would, just lean on back and look straight up, and we're going to start looking at some stars. So the first constellation that I like to talk about in the nighttime sky in the fall is Andromeda. And in order to find her and make her look exactly what you're looking at in the nighttime sky here in the planetarium, you want to make sure you know your directions. You know, you'll have your north, south, east, and west. I can kind of cheat here in the planetarium because, well, I have a giant north, south, east, and west in my sky. But if you have a cell phone, most of our cell phones have our compasses built in, and so we want you to look towards the east and then look straight up. So the first constellation is Andromeda. I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about Andromeda. In Greek mythology, Andromeda was a beautiful princess. Her mother, Queen Cassiopeia, actually bragged so much about her beauty that the gods got jealous and chained her to a rock to punish her for being more beautiful than them. I know, right? It sounds very petty. But it makes a great story, and it's one of the reasons they put her in the nighttime sky. They also put her mother, Queen Cassiopeia, in the sky, and her husband, the one who rescued her. So no worries there, she did get rescued. But it also makes for a really cool way to think, okay, so I'm looking for a pretty princess in the sky. Well, I don't know about you, but this constellation does not look like a pretty princess to me. So I kind of see a triangle that was unfinished and that somebody kind of knocked the top on, and it's kind of abnormal, right? Doesn't look like much of anything. But she does hold some keys to some really cool things that you can see in the nighttime sky. So the first thing I like to talk about whenever we find Andromeda is you can see that she's this wacky part of a triangle looking figure, but she holds something called the Andromeda Galaxy. We'll go ahead and label that for you. It's very hard to see with my constellation up there, so I'm going to go ahead and take her down and leave my label. And what you're looking for is if you saw her two belt stars, which are this star and this star right here, beside the word Andromeda, you'll see a faint fuzzy patch. Does everyone see that fuzzy patch? Mm-hmm. You guys are actually looking at the farthest thing away from us that we can see with the naked eye. So if I were to zoom in using a telescope, this is what the Andromeda Galaxy would look like. The Andromeda Galaxy is a very, very large galaxy, much like our own here at the Milky Way. It's a spiral galaxy, and it is so large that it actually has satellite galaxies orbiting around it. That alone is pretty cool to me. The other thing I like to think about is that Andromeda Galaxy is actually like the model spiral galaxy. We only technically have two categories of galaxies that we have. Those are spiral galaxies and globular galaxies. Most of them will be spirals, but in this presentation we're going to talk about the different kinds of spirals. This is just a perfect spiral. It looks like you've stirred up hot chocolate and pulled your spoon out real quick, and everything's finally like melted together. That's what it looks like to me. Or if you get a latte and you stir it really quick, and then you pull a spoon out, and it's got this perfect swirl on top. So I'm going to go back to our Andromeda. Another really cool thing that you can use Andromeda to find with a telescope in the nighttime sky is a ring nebula. So we actually call this one the Blue Snowball Nebula. I'm going to label our Blue Snowball. It's up there near her hand with the chains. So if you use the Andromeda Galaxy and you come up just a little bit and you aim your telescope and you zoom on in, your blue snowball might look a little bit more like this. I apologize for the delay. My computer's got a little bit of a lag going on. So what you're looking at is a ring nebula. I think it's really neat, and it's actually the remnants of a dying star. And I know that sounds kind of depressing. Oh great, why are we talking about a dying star? But the really cool thing about ring nebulas is that they're actually a symbol of rebirth as well. So you've got this star in the middle. This is probably an average-sized star, much like our sun. Most stars are not big enough to end their life cycle in a giant explosion that we call a supernova. Like our sun and other stars, they'll just eventually start losing their outer layers. So as the fusion process goes on and a star is starting to fizzle out, they can no longer hold on to those outside layers because their gravitational pull is getting lower. So they'll eventually start ejecting these layers out into the cosmos. And each layer is typically composed of different elements, is why we see different colors of these rings. And we call this the blue snowball because right now the easiest colors for us to see coming through from this nebula is blue. So it looks like a giant snowball in the nighttime sky. Alright, we go back to Andromeda. We've talked about Andromeda and her galaxy. We've also talked about the blue snowball, so we've seen a nebula. The next thing I like to talk about is her mom, just to kind of show you another really cool constellation. It's easy to find and wow your friends with, and that was Queen Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia was very boastful. She bragged so much about her daughters. They decided to put her in the nighttime sky as well, just to remind people not to brag so much. I don't know about you, but she doesn't look a whole lot like a queen to me. But if you use your imagination, we can actually turn her constellation into a crown. So you can use the bottom star here and draw a line up to here, and it looks a little bit more like a crown. Or if you really want to use your imagination, you take the bottom star, draw a line, come down, and then it really looks like a crown. In fact, we've even given this constellation the nickname the Northern Crown. So moving on and talking about something other than our boastful queen, we're going to talk about the other kind of galaxy that I wanted to show you today. The other kind of galaxy is actually seen in the galaxy called Triangulum. And in astronomy, we are not incredibly original when we go to name things. So if I'm looking for a constellation named Triangulum, what shape do you guys think I'm looking for? A teeny tiny triangle. See, we didn't get very original. I'll tell you a little bit about some other stars that we named in just a moment, and they also were not original names. But we're looking for Triangulum, and the reason I like to look at this Triangulum galaxy is because, once again, it is a spiral galaxy, but it's what we call a pinwheel galaxy. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom on in there for you. This is the pinwheel galaxy, and as you'll notice, the difference between this galaxy and the Andromeda galaxy is that you can easily see the arms of the galaxy. There is a little bit more space, not as much concentration of clouds between each of the arms of the galaxy itself. Now I say clouds, I really mean all the debris and the stars, that kind of thing. There's more concentrated pieces of stars. It looks a little bit like a pinwheel that you can put in your garden and wait for the wind to blow. So if I zoom back out, speaking of galaxies, is there anything you guys might see between the feet of Cassiopeia and the feet of Andromeda? It actually runs right between these two constellations. It looks a little bit fuzzy, like you've got some clouds in your viewing area. And what you're looking at is actually not clouds. If you can get a little bit further away from the lights of the city, or perhaps even go back in time when we didn't have as much light pollution, it would look a little bit more like this. And what you're looking at is our very own home galaxy of the Milky Way. So it's not really dirt or clouds. It's actually the glow of billions of stars in our galaxy, much like our sun. Some a little bigger, some smaller, some older, some newer. In fact, if I zoom on out, I can show you our Milky Way galaxy. Our Milky Way looks like this. Of course, we'll never be able to come outside of our galaxy to see our galaxy look like a spiral. See, ours looks like a mix between Andromeda and the Pinwheel galaxy. We've got a little bit of space between our concentrations of stars in our galaxy. But we'll never be able to zoom out and see it like this as humans, because we live inside of our galaxy. It would take way longer than our life cycle to get outside of our galaxy. So the reason it looks like a band across our night sky is because we live inside of our galaxy, and as my computer model is bringing this down, you can see that it becomes a band across our planetarian screen. And that's kind of what's happening in the nighttime sky. We're looking at the band because we're looking out at our galaxy, not below it, up at it. So now that we've talked about 3 different galaxies, I'm going to talk about one more galaxy before it's all said and done. I want to talk about a couple other constellations that are pretty easy to find and have some really neat stuff if you have telescopes, but they're also really easy to find and wow your friends with. So the first one I want to talk about that's in our zodiac constellations is Aries. And Aries was said to have been the sheep or the ram with golden fleece that was sought by Jason and the Argonauts. They wanted to shear off all his golden fleece and give it to King Midas, and it didn't work out so well for them as far as that's concerned. But as you'll notice, Aries is a very unassuming little constellation. It looks like a stick with a little bit of a curve on the end. and I have a really hard time making this look anything like a sheep. However, in the nighttime sky, there are some really cool things about Aries that you can see if you do have a telescope, so I'll talk to you about those. The very first star on this end, I like to call it the butt star of the sheep, is very hard to see whenever you are outside looking. Here in the planetarium, it's labeled, we can see it, that kind of thing, but it's actually pretty faint. It's very hard to see with the naked eye outside. But these three stars, Alpha, Beta, and Gamma Eritis, are actually very easy to see. They are very, very bright, and they all have planets orbiting around them, so that's pretty neat. We figured that one out. So going back to the whole not being original thing, if you know anything about the Greek alphabet, you know the first three letters are Alpha, Beta, and Gamma. So we named these three stars Alpha Eritis, Beta Eritis, and Gamma Eritis. And it wasn't until later that we came along and we decided